Hello, welcome back to German 101 Online. We have a fun topic today, verb conjugation, the joy of every student. We proceed in the normal manner. We will talk about what's in a name. We'll discuss some patterns of verb conjugation, and I will give you some study advice at the very end. Let's get started. Here we have a comparison of 4 verbs in French, Spanish, German, and English. Have a look at this slide and see whether you can make out the similarities and or the differences among those 4 languages when it comes to verb conjugation. I'll give you a second or two. All right, let's see. Here's a little bit more of a detailed view. The French verb étudier ends in ER. The Spanish equivalent ends in AR. The German ends in EN. And the English infinitive actually has 2 words, to study. In the other languages, we distinguish verb forms by their ending and develop patterns on how to study them. And the French, for example, adds an E in the first person, an ES in the second, an E in the third person, and ONS in the first person plural at the very bottom of the slide. Spanish follows that with its own patterns. German has patterns, and even English changes a little bit. So you are not unfamiliar with verb conjugation. It is just not that obvious in English, but you know it. So, what is the same? Look at the tu form in French, the du form or the you form in English. We can see that each language, with the exception of English, has an S somewhere at the end. And by the way, older forms of English still have that. Lookest over there would be something that people said a few hundred years ago. All right, what is the difference? Can you see the difference? One language doesn't really follow the same pattern. Let's move on and we'll discover that. Differences and similarities. All 4 languages change the verb forms, some more and some less. And here's the difference. Some languages can do without the subject pronoun. Subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, we, you, and they. The language that didn't change or doesn't need the subject pronoun is Spanish. A large part of the infinitive, or in some cases all of it, is recycled. And finally, changes normally occur at the end. Now let's have a look at German conjugation patterns. We have here 4 verbs: lernen, to learn; geben, to give; nehmen, to take; schlafen, to sleep. You have the subject pronouns on the left side: ich, du; er, sie; wir, ihr; and sie. Try to find the pattern. Look at the first line, ich. That is pretty obvious. We drop the en and we add an e. Seems to be pretty straightforward. The you form is pretty straightforward. We drop en and add st. The he and she, er and sie form is the same as the ihr form. That's pretty easy. Drop en and add a t. And the easiest forms are via and c. You don't really have to change anything at all. These are freebies. Now let's have a look at what children do. I eat it all the cake, is what this little girl says. Or, this boy said, I win the race. And I'm not making this up. These are actual sentences that my son used when he was about 3 years old. What is this? Why do children actually say, eat it, and win? Children are kind of smart. They overgeneralize because they apply the most frequent and obvious rule of past tense formation in English to every single verb that comes their way. That's why they say, I eat it instead of I ate, I win instead of I won. And they don't worry because at one point in their life they will all find the exception to the pattern and they will use I ate, I won, and move on. And this is what I would like you to do when you study. Be like a child and don't worry too much when speaking. Learn the most common and the most widely used pattern because this is where you get the most bang for your study time. Slowly add different patterns or exceptions. And finally, a general advice, and it applies to verb conjugation too. Students frequently run into a wall because they want to say what actually happened. They want to be truthful, yet they don't have the vocabulary to do it. My advice is say what you can say rather than what you want to say if you don't have the verb form. Because it is not lying, it is fiction. So this is it for our verb conjugation PowerPoint. I'll see you in another PowerPoint presentation.